So we'll go ahead and get started. This is a partnership with the Muscle Shoals Music Association and the Department of Entertainment Industry, and we started this educational series last fall and brought down, I think it was 8 producers and engineers from Nashville, talk about production and engineering and their experiences. And so since we offer a degree on the tech side and a second on the business side, we wanted to do something more business-oriented this semester. So we've got a couple of, what I think are going to be great panels today. I want to go ahead and apologize. One of our panelists emailed this morning or texted me this morning and is sick and could not make it. So Jill Wheeler from Red Mountain graciously said, hey, if you want to bring some students down to tour Oak Mountain Theater and talk to them down there, bring them to Birmingham. So I'm sure we'll be planning that trip soon. But part of MSMA's mission statement is to promote, preserve the legacy of Muscle Shoals music as well as the future of Muscle. And so we're excited to offer the panels today. And I'd like to thank some people, Dr. Garfrerick here at the Entertainment Industry, or Department of Entertainment Industry, for partnering or allowing us to part department to bring these panels. Alec Whitcheck, who is the technical director here, he's running sound. Larry Bowser from the Marriott Hotel and Spa. Randy Bruce and his students will be filming and doing audio today as well from Florence Department of Digital Media. Thank you guys for coming. And want to also acknowledge, I think there are some board members. David Hood is here. Hallie Phillip. Wayne is here. Anybody else? Other board? So thank you guys for coming and having the vision to allow us to do these things to bring to our students. So I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists today. We have Emily Bragg. Emily earned her degree in PR from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and began her career as an intern at AC Entertainment and has been in the music industry and as a professional for 12 years. In her first years of her career, she worked in the production of music festivals, and after exploring various departments with festivals such as Bonnaroo, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, Tortuga, and Forecastle, she eventually focused her attention on artist relations, where she became the department director for Pemberton, Kaboo, and Hangout festivals. 2008, she began working with Nashville-based M. Hitchcock Management, and after some time, her position grew from managing from the office to working as tour manager for then-client Dylan LeBlanc. I was telling Emily earlier, it seems like every time we have somebody come down, they somehow have a connection with Muscle Shoals. So Dylan is an artist here from Muscle Shoals. This began her career as a professional tour manager. In the last decade, she's worked with various artists, including the Alabama Shakes, the Decemberists, Local Natives, Phoebe Robinson, and most currently, Bon Iver. And she said you pronounce it Bon Iver. Bon Iver. So anyway, so welcome, Emily. And then we have Jeri Willoughby. Jeri is one of our very own who graduated in 2014 with a degree in entertainment industry. She's from Cullman, Alabama, and after graduation, she began working at Premier Production, where she is the digital marketing coordinator. Premier Productions, in case you don't know, is the largest promoter of Christian concerts and events in the world, as well as the owner of Rock the South. Now, several of our students have interned and over the summer with Rock the South, which is one of the United States' largest country music festivals. As digital marketing coordinator, she manages the purchasing and creation of digital advertising for over 600 events per year. She works in advertising platforms including Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Pinterest, YouTube, as well as manages orders for display and retargeting campaigns and geofencing. She was part of the Rock the South team for 5 years, working the info tent to overseeing and launching the own sale campaigns in 2017 and 18. Welcome, Jeri Willoughby. So, all right. It's okay, y'all can clap. So, okay, I want to go ahead and get started. Maybe, and I was telling you guys earlier, we're finding, and I'm glad to see there are some males here too. It's not just about the women today. But we are finding more and more of our students are interested. The female students are interested in a career in touring. So it's going to be interesting to hear your story and your advice today. But tell us how you got your first job in the industry, whether it was in touring or not.
So, like I said, I was Brian, y'all's student. And when I decided to change my major, I was terrified because, like, the first day I got into class, I mean, it was a room full of males and a handful of females. So that was intimidating from the start. But I got my foot in the door through our internship that was required to graduate. I had decided to interview a few people that worked with music festivals for my big capstone project. I decided I wanted to make a marketing plan, which I should resubmit that because that's what I actually do for a living now, and it was so poor. But so I got an internship with Rock the South, and that actually turned into being an internship with Premier Productions, which is the Christian music promoter. I had no idea that it was in my hometown. I knew that it had been there for so long. But after my internship was over, they decided to hire me part-time. So, of course, like, I landed a part-time in my hometown. Like, it worked out really well. So I was specifically working with the customer service department and the ticketing department. So I was just answering phone calls and making ticket orders, talking to angry customers all day. And then and about 6 months later, they decided to hire me full-time in the routing department. So at that point, I was working directly with artist management venues, routing full tours for these artists, and making artist offers, submitting them, and then submitting that to the team after it's finished. But in the meantime, during that year in routing, I got close to the marketing department, and it really piqued my interest. I thought that that's probably what I wanted to do. So on the side, I was always just like, what can I do? How can I help? So, it was a full year of kind of two jobs, and then a position came open where a gentleman left the company, went somewhere else, and they kind of took a leap of faith on me and hired me for that position. And that's where I've been for, I think this summer will be 3 years, and I love it. So right now I do all of the digital buying for all of our shows. So I create and manage the ads on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, the whole, digital world, helping managing the budgets, creating those proposals that I thought I knew how to do in college. And so, yeah, that's where we are right now.
I guess it's similar to Jeri. I got into the business in an internship. When I was at UT Knoxville, there's a company there called AC Entertainment, and they co-promoted, or still do actually, Bonnaroo. And so I had interned there, and I graduated and asked if they had any opportunities at Bonnaroo because I really still wasn't fully sure what I wanted to do in the industry. I just knew I wanted to do music. So I asked what was the position that would get me the most exposure, and they have people on site building the festival for about 5 to 6 weeks, and they start catering 4 weeks out. Well, I guess actually, yeah, I was there for a month, so a week after, so 3 weeks before. So I basically checked people in as they would come into the catering tent, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and did that for a month. So I met everybody and knew everybody's names, and they knew me just because, we saw each other 3 times a day. And technically, I guess that was my first job in the industry. And the rest of that summer, this is right after I graduated college, I just kind of continued doing that same thing at tons of music festivals. Any festival I could get on, that was like kind of my position, was the catering girl, the lunch lady, whatever. So I just kind of freelanced that way, and that was the way it all went down.
So then it sounds like the internship for both of you was huge.
Oh, yeah.
It was huge.
First job.
I think too, it gave me some guidance. I was a public relations major, but I didn't necessarily know what to do with that. I kind of just went to school because I should, I didn't really know what to do. And I joined the campus entertainment board at UT, and we put on events, but we put on one large show every year. And at that year, it was Ben Folds. And I just kind of was like, this is awesome. I helped set up, and we drove him to a meet and greet. And, I was like, okay, this is really interesting. It's fun, but it's also there's a sort of a formula to it. It's not just like off the cuff all the time. So
I agree with Emily said. I had no idea. Hey, I want to work as a promoter. I had no idea that I wanted to do digital marketing. Like, it's kind of once I got in there, I saw how broad all the positions were. I made them hire me for that position that I wanted. Like, I just took off after it. But yeah, the internship really showed me just how vast like all the were. I had no idea that I wanted to work for a promoter.
So what sort of things did you do? Because you said you made them hire you. What did you do for? 'Cause I mean, that's so many of these students are getting ready to do their internship.
Yeah.
So, and this is one of the things we'll wind up with at the end. But what sort of things did you do, and you do too, to say we've got to hire this?
Yeah. I mean, and luckily for me, they were really at the ground floor of about to like really blow up and hire a bunch of people. So I was there. They really needed positions. So like I said, I was answering phone calls. I was, I never looked up, just constantly working. And kind of once I took all over the phone calls and stuff, well, then they were free to do things. So they could go back to answering phone calls and doing all these things. So, and then once they hired me in routing, they kind of presented me like, this is where we can hire you full time. So sure, yes, I will learn how to route shows. I will do my best. And then in the meantime is where, I kind of really, I zoned in on marketing and helped that position as much as I could. So when that position did open, that actually the gentleman that had that job, he suggested me for that job. And that same day he told me, like, I approached my boss. I was like, hey, super interested in this. What do you think? Do you think take a chance on it? They did. Learned a lot since then. And actually our team has grown a ton. I actually have 3 people part-time that work under me now. So it's really grown since.
So tell us what a typical day you would be, whether that is, and for you, I guess twofold, because what a typical day on the road would be versus a typical day getting ready to go on the road. Yeah. So kind of two different things for you.
So when I'm home off tour, I have to advance everything and get the plan together. So it's all from home. So typically I just get up and I've, kind of created a workspace and try to hold office hours so that I'm not, it can be really hard to work from home because you get really distracted and you end up doing things that are more like chores at the house or whatever. So I try to do like a 9 to 5 and I try not to do weekends. But to be honest, that's probably maybe a year-long thing. I used to pretty much work 24 hours a day and every day of the week because with touring, there's no like Monday, there's no Saturday. It's just every day is the same day. So if an email came in, I felt obligated to answer it because it'll just continue to back up. So I didn't really do that, but you can get really burned out in the industry on the road, and then you come home and you want to have that time to sort of rest and recoup, and you can't always because as the tour manager, you're planning the next tour. So building some parameters for yourself can always make your quality of life better, I guess. So that's my normal day at home pre-tour. It sucks whenever you have another tour back to back. So you're on tour and you're advancing the next tour. But
those that don't know advancing, tell them what
advancing is doing creating a plan for the whole tour. So I don't book the shows, I don't, I am a logistic person mostly. And there's an element that's, it's like precision guesswork with like ever-changing information. So I'm always trying to guess what the artist might want to do or what the best option may be. And sometimes there's an A plan and a B plan, and I still have to plan those as if both were going to happen. And then obviously one does and one doesn't. But it's everything from scheduling of, the day, which can include press. I always have a security meeting at the venue, to make sure that everybody is aware of what our credentials are, what our needs are. Guest lists, figuring out where our comp seats are with the venue ticketing office. It's all just sort of planning what needs to happen and trying to make the day as smooth as I possibly can for my artist or even my crew. I mean, the production manager typically acts sort of like a tour manager for the crew as you get to be bigger, I guess, as your tour is larger. I mean, when I first started, I was the only crew person on the tour, so I did everything, but as you grow, your staff grows and you kind of departmentalize. So, but just trying to plan, and calling the venues and discussing things. And a venue show is completely different than a festival show. A festival show, basically the festival says, here's how we're going to do it. And you have to kind of give into that a little. And maybe there's a few needs that you have specific to your band that you can get them to help you with. But a venue show is your show if you're the headliner. So you choose how you want the day to go and what dressing rooms you want people to be in and what catering you'd like to have that day and that sort of thing. So a day on tour for me is waking up in a parking lot at a festival or at a venue, not knowing how to get in the door. So you have to figure out how to get inside, coming off the bus, go inside, and luckily I have an assistant. So she's usually hanging up signs so that everybody else that's trying to figure out where to go can find it. And a lot of times she's already done a venue walkthrough with the promoter rep, who is the person that represents the buyer at the show and the venue a lot of times as well. So we kind of just walk through, and basically I'm just looking for an understanding and a layout of the land so that anybody in the band or on the crew, any question anyone might have, I'm trying to ask first because they're going to come to me and ask me. So I'm just trying to understand what's going on and then go back through the plan that we created and make sure that everything is either being executed or the plan is set to execute it as the day goes on. So yeah, that's pretty much a day on the road. I mean, I have an office that we set up every day, and the band has their room and the crew, and just making sure the plan happens, checking in with the band, making sure they're okay, if they need anything, that sort of thing. Get them on stage. The band I'm with now goes on stage and comes off, and we have 2 sets. So get them on, get them off, and do it again, and then pack it up, get on the bus, make sure I don't leave anybody, and go to the next town.
Do you ever get to enjoy a show?
Actually, yeah. I typically, for most of my artists, I watch almost every show. Sometimes it's from the wing, so it doesn't sound as good as from the house. Know that, Alex? But yeah, a lot of times I will go out into the house and watch if I can, because I think knowing how the show goes and then being able to talk to the artist afterwards, they don't get to see it from the front of house, so they kind of want to know what the vibe was and if it looked good, if it sounded good, and all that stuff. So then I have that sort of extra bit that I can share with them after the show.
What about you, Jeri? What about your
Yeah.
typical day?
So I feel like I'm on the completely opposite side of Emily. Like I have an office. Now there are a lot of people within our company that do sometimes work from home. But I was fortunate enough, we do have a home office in Coleman, and I come in 8 to 5. Our team's a little bit different, whereas like our first 30 minutes of the day, we will meet at our big conference table and just have a morning meeting. It can be serious. Usually it isn't. We're just kind of catching up. And it's really created like a family dynamic. So that's nice. But 8:30, go sit down. And honestly, I spend the majority of my day behind my 2 monitors, just cranking out ads. And as my boss says, just chopping wood. Yeah, that's his favorite thing to say. But the very first thing I'll do every single morning is if we have a show, which we usually at least have one, the first thing I'll do is I will go pull all of the receipts that I have like spent money on. So Facebook, any of it, all of it, because then I have to go send it to either the tour rep or our promoter rep, which sometimes it's the same person, depending on the tour that we're doing. So that's the very first thing I do, because they're getting up, they're going into the venue, and they need to know exactly what was spent. Because each individual show that we typically work with has its own set budget. And even if we're promoting the whole tour, it's rare that we cross-collateralize across the whole tour and send it at the end. Like, they have to settle that night. So they like to have that by lunchtime. So just to avoid any time zone confusion, I send it first thing in the morning. That way, if they have any questions, we have.
I have to settle all that stuff at the
Yeah.
show, and it doesn't always come in.
First thing in the morning, like that's the first thing I do. And I've set that expectation now. So if it's not there by 10, they're like, hey. So that's the first thing I do. And then, I'll check my email. Typically, it's just within the company. But we do have some festivals and things where I talk directly to artist management, getting content from them. So like right now, for example, I have a lot of communication with artist managers, getting approved footage and getting promos approved. A lot of what I do, like I am requesting video promos from, freelance video people that we work with, or freelance graphic designers. So like from start to finish for a tour, we will get a big old email with announced dates and then the tour routing. It can range from 15 dates to 30. It just depends on the artist and how many shows they have. So I will then take all of those dates. I go in and we work Dropbox all day long in Google Sheets. But I'll go get the budgets for each individual show. I'll then go in and present a plan to my director, which, working with her longer, like I know exactly what she wants to spend money on and how much she wants to spend. And then after that's approved, you just hit the ground running, and you have a lot of moving parts within an on sale. So you have the initial announcement push, which in that stage you're pushing them. Pre-sale day is this day, getting the pre-sale code out there, and then pre-sale day, different change of ads, completely different sets, and then the on-sale period. And yeah, from there you just kind of keep rolling, and you stick to your plan a little bit depending on ticket counts. We get ticket counts twice a week, and there's flags that have to work on and redo your times. But that's a typical day. Like I said, I rarely have to go on the road. If it is, it's usually more relational. Like, by the time the show is happening, my job's over. Either there's people in the seats or there isn't. So it's more relational if I ever have to go out on the road. Occasionally, if they get in a pinch, we might have to go fill in for desk or, something. But it's pretty rare for me at this point. Yeah.
So what is something that the general public does not know about your field? Something that kind of surprised you when you first started working that the general population wouldn't No.
I don't think anyone knows what I do in general. Like they think I'm an event planner or they think I book shows, which neither are true. I mean, to a certain degree, I guess I understand both of those, and people don't know how I get my job. So what is my job and how I get it? I mean, tour manager, I manage the tour, but, people just don't understand. And, tour managers get their jobs freelance, typically. There's no like tour manager placement. I mean, actually, there is one in Nashville, actually, but I don't work for them. It's just purely relationships that I've built and contacts I've made throughout my time. So I feel really misunderstood a lot, actually. There's not just one thing, I don't think that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's relationship because so much of this industry is. I know
Absolutely.
we had a girl that interned, I guess it was not this past summer, but the summer before, out on the road with a former graduate who was road manager for James Taylor. And she interned with him. And of course, after the tour was over, you're not employed, you find something else. And just by virtue of, I think it was Bob Kenton, if he's in here, can tell me, who was it that she did the laundry? She didn't have money. Somebody on the tour was having a birthday and she didn't have money to buy a present, but she took his laundry. And isn't that right? She took his laundry and did all of his laundry for him. And he remembered that. And then he went out on tour with somebody else and was so impressed with her that he said, hey, come work this tour with me. And it was something as small as, well, maybe not small, it might have been a lot of laundry.
Right.
That's right. He was the tour accountant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she impressed him by doing that. And it's so much as relationships.
Yeah,
because she
really.
did that, she got another job. And I think was it Barbara Streisand? Was that the tour she went on after that? I think so.
Started at the top there.
Yeah, it's like, where do you go, James
No
Taylor?
band tours for
Yes,
her. Yeah.
Like so. But anyway, it's relationships.
Yeah, and it can be complicated because truly it actually is a pretty small business, the touring industry at least. And you got to be careful about burning bridges, or you want to stand up for what is the right thing to do, but you still have to be flexible, because every manager you meet, because I work so much daily with the artist's manager, every manager you meet, there's an industry standard for sure, but really you're creating your own position. And sometimes managers are doing the same. So sometimes if it's a great manager, they'll help lead you and understand what you're doing. But, if they're not, everything can kind of just be like, like the tour is not going that well, or it's not organized properly. A lot of last minute decisions, that sort of thing. So, I mean, it's you never want to burn a bridge as much as possible unless you feel it's something that, some kind of moral issue or whatever. Because I guarantee that person will come back around in some form for their spouse. Because I'm also married. I'm married to a tour manager. So, and we don't share the same last name. So it's interesting, because they may not know we're connected, and it can be really complicated because it's not like an office job, I think, where home is home and work is work. I mean, you live with the people you work with, so it can get really, the area can be very gray and not so black and white.
I mean, I just think of, when I thought of that question, when I went in, like what I didn't know. It's not cookie cutter at all. Like everything changes with the tide. Like, somebody seems like they might be an expert, but it's because they are willing to change and adapt to everything. If you see a promoter who is stuck in his ways, he's not going to be around that long. Because you can't work that way. So each show is different. Everything from the artist guarantee to the venue deal to even marketing, influencers have become a big thing. Everything's negotiable. So I think that was kind of I learned that it's not just, here's the numbers, take it and run. It's very vast. It's different with it, and yeah, very flexible.
I don't want to wait to the last minute for questions in case we run out, because I want you guys to have time to ask questions. Does anybody now have a question you want to ask?
I'll be walking around with the mic, but before I find someone, I have an advancing the tour question, just so the students understand exactly. It's so then somebody books the show, and when you're advancing the tour, they just hand you a blank slate and say, here's our schedule. We're in Memphis on the 3rd, we're in Omaha here, and then you figure out the rest, and they say, go figure this out.
Yes. Yeah.
When I was in routing, I would literally do that. I would route a tour, and then we have a touring department. I would say, here's everything. Here is the offer. Here's what our marketing budget is, and that would go to the marketing team. Here's the venue contacts.
Yep.
Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, the way the things that I need really to start my advance is to know dates and cities, and a contract. And in the contract, it'll say, obviously, contacts for the venue, but every contract usually has the budget broken down. So inside of a budget, you'll have ad pack, you'll have catering and a runner, which is a person that does errands for the tour when they're at the venue. All this stuff is already built, and a number is put on it. And when I come in, when I settle the show, we look at where the numbers are, and actually talk about that in the advance some too. When we're trying to figure out catering, for example, that's a non-fixed cost, so you want to try to stay under if you can. But let's say we're way under in our advertising. Let's say the show sold out in 2 days, and we really didn't have to advertise that much. Then we might get, nicer food for dinner because we have more money to spend, So, knowing those things when I go into the advance helped me to plan. And and even just knowing the cities and the dates, I'm responsible for Department of Transportation rules as well. So I have to make sure that we're staying within the right, that our drivers for the buses and the trucks actually are driving no longer than they should, and that their breaks are a certain time, or a certain amount of time. So they just say, here are the cities, and sometimes it's illegal drives and you have to get a second driver, so you have to fly that person out so that they can give the other driver a break, and so they sleep in a bunk, that's free or whatever. So there's a lot of little things that go into just getting started on the event.
All right, who has a question?
So it's not all glamorous stuff.
Absolutely not.
I have 2 questions for the both of you guys. So with working freelance, how do you decide, if you choose who you want to work with, what kind of makes you do that? And with is it on the band side where it's just really an artist, or is it more on the connections you've made beforehand? And with working where you're not freelance, are you just kind of given a tick given to you, or you kind of get to pick what you want to do? And also, what is the most challenging thing you guys have had to overcome where it completely went off plan and you kind of had to learn on the fly?
Okay, so typically it is not necessarily me saying, ooh, I really want to work with this band. It's typically me just making sure my resume is always up to date. And when I don't have a project coming up, I actually still, until the last year, was still doing festival work whenever I wasn't touring, which is kind of unique to most touring people, because they're usually either one side or the other. And I had the unique experience of starting in festivals and then going to touring, so I could still pick that up if I didn't have a tour coming up. But usually I would just blast out my email. I keep a sort of running, Rolodex, if you will, of folks that I think are connected in the way that they could get me a job, you know? I mean, anybody from Jill Wheeler who's not here, you know, I'll email her, and she's not really in touring every day, but she might hear of an artist that's coming to town that needs a tour manager, you know, that something happened and that person is not, or the band is not, you know, with somebody. And I'll just blast it out, and I'll just say, hey, looking for work starting in October or whatever, you know, whatever the date is, and attach my resume. As I've, you know, stayed in the industry longer, people reach out to me and friends that work on the same level as I do will say, hey, somebody just reached out to me, but I can't do these dates. And that's how, honestly, it's been for probably the last 5 years or so. And when I get stuff, I do the same thing. Like, you know, somebody emails me, and Young the Giant emailed me the other day. And I said, well, I know some great people. Hopefully they're available. Here you go. I mean, it's kind of like we're all in it together, but we're all competing, you know, so it can be a little complicated, but.
So there's not like a database or an online, hey, we're looking for a tour manager. You just go out and
there
find
actually
work.
is. It's kind of, it was extremely archaic and it's getting better now, but it's this network called BobNet. And it used to just be email blasts that you could sign up for. Now there's a Facebook page. And it's this guy, Bob Davis, who is an old school tour accountant. He's been doing it for years and years. And I guess people would just hit him up about jobs or, you know, word of mouth kind of thing. So he started the email list. And I guess maybe 2 years ago, it turned into a Facebook thing. And it's actually really cool because there's a touring pro category and there's a young guns category. So if you don't have much experience, classify yourself as a young gun, and you know, it's a lot of van and trailer tours, that sort of thing, but it's just sort of like, hey, we need a body, and if you're willing and able, come on out. So it's actually a really great opportunity. And there's more things coming along. I can't think of the name, but Alicia Keys just started a network for women, and you can go put your profile on there, and basically any person in music, whether it's a stylist, a tech person, a tour manager, whoever, can have a profile on there. Yeah.
So you're asking if I kind of like have free range to pick. Since I am, you know, I'm hired by Premier Productions, like I work strictly for them. I really don't get a say in what shows that I get to, you know, work marketing on. It's all handed to us, and you just have to do it. But, you know, Premier's a little bit unique because we do have our own in-house buying. So whereas typically I would work freelance and help companies like Premier, I work strictly for them. I touch all 600 plus events that we'll have this year when it comes to digital buying. Now with Rock the South, though, once I got hired at Premier, and then Rock the South would start to revamp, and we would start working marketing on there, I was a contract worker there. So that was kind of like a freelance gig where, you know, unfortunately this year, like we have so many shows that we're promoting at Premier Productions, we didn't have the manpower or the time to give Rock the South what it needed. So they did have to hire out somebody else that does freelance work to do Rock the South, which was a big bummer because I enjoyed it. But, you know, when it comes to marketing, I mean, I know how to buy ads. So every now and then I do kind of freelance and pick up something on the side. It's not often now because I would literally be working 24/7 and kind of the payout wasn't really. So, you know, Premier Productions and all of our shows has my full attention, you know, every single day.
Want to take one more from here before you go back? One more question? Mr. Losi.
I forgot the names, but the one stage right.
Emily.
Emily. How do you set your charges and how do you get paid?
I'm glad you asked that. Actually, a lot of people in the industry don't really discuss their pay. it's hard. It's a hard topic. Obviously, you don't want to say what you make a week. Well, let me
We're
back.
not asking
Let me
you
back.
to tell it. Don't tell us that. Just
No.
Yeah.
No. I don't mean, yeah. What I'm saying is if the industry folks discussed it more, we'd probably all have better rates, within each other, and not in a bragging way or anything, but it's difficult to know, like where do you start? I think it's kind of just trying to figure out what your value is on that tour. A lot of times I'll get an email that says, hey, we need a tour manager and we're willing to do X amount of dollars a week, or this day rate or this show day rate, and they'll do a different day rate for travel days. I mean, there's 1,000 ways you can do it. That's kind of the standard, but like I said before, I mean, there's industry standards everywhere, but everything is flexible, so you can kind of figure out what you want. Yeah, I mean, I would just ask other friends, or whenever I get the offer, hey, I need this position filled, and they'll say, what's your rate? And I always say, well, what's the job? Because if it's a van and trailer tour and I'm the only crew person, that means not only am I taking care of the band, but I'm also probably selling merchandise, and I'm doing guest lists, and we probably can't afford catering. So I'm placing orders at restaurants for everybody's, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and getting the runner to get, I mean, it's a lot, or even further up, it's like, okay, well, do you have a merch person? How many crew do you have? How many band do you have? How many buses? How many semi trucks? You kind of, to me, I think it's important to understand what they're even asking first, and then you can put your number on it. And to me, that seems like common sense, but a lot of people don't see it that way. They just think, what's your rate? So I say ask what the job is first, and out of the gate, I mean, I wasn't making much, so there is that whole idea of paying your dues. That's kind of a real thing, or at least it was then. I didn't go to school for music. I didn't have the skills that you guys already have. I was completely blank slate. So I just kind of did whatever. I literally took every job that came my way because it can't hurt. You can't have too much experience. That's never a thing, So you just kind of start out, play it by ear, and then realize, hey, I have this much experience now, so I could probably ask for more. In that same, thing, I always, if possible, I always have whoever's offering me the job throw out the first number, because then you know what they're working with, and you can always say, close, but I actually need a little more than that, and see if they'll give it to you. I mean, I love negotiating. That's, it's lucky for me that I'm in freelance, because I really do like to negotiate. So it's, if you can ever do it, just see if they'll throw out the number. Say, what's the budget you're looking at? What are you working with? And how can I fit into it? And sometimes if it's a job that you really want, like I did Alana Glazer, who's from Broad City, and Phoebe Robinson, who's Two Dope Queens. They're comedians. I really wanted the job just because it's cool, I really admire those women. And they were on kind of more of a budget, because it's not a normal tour where there's a full production and a full staff and everything like that. So I had to say, what's the budget you're working with? Because I'll come down knowing that, it's just me and a merch person. I'll come down just because I want to work with this artist, not necessarily that you have to give me my rate, because my responsibilities were also less, so.
if someone trying to get their foot in the door as a tour manager, what could they do?
Send me your resume. Truly, I mean, it's one of those things where it's all relationships. Coming to stuff like this is awesome. Internships. If you find someone that that tours, you could ask if they'd be willing to do the volunteer sort of intern thing. Not every tour will do that, because your skill set is just as important as your vibe and your personality, which is kind of, again, not normal to most jobs. But if nobody likes you on the tour, if you don't, not necessarily likes you, but if you don't fit in with that group, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for you, but it's hard for them too. So it can be really miserable. Yeah. So it's, and sometimes you don't get asked back on tours, not because you did anything wrong, just because it doesn't fit quite right. And you have to let that, roll off your back a little bit. But I think just meeting people, volunteering, trying to get involved in local venues so that you can meet people that tour, that are coming in every day, whether you're selling merch for the venue or you're the runner. That's how, I did all of that stuff, just trying to meet people. And again, I work festivals. So once I got into the artist relations department, that is the department that would advance the festival with the tour manager. So I was working directly with tons of tour managers. So I'd say put yourself in a position where you're meeting people who tour, whether that's your local venue or you can volunteer at festivals. Bonnaroo has a great volunteer program. So
we have a lot of promoter reps. Like every show that we have, all 600 shows, there's a promoter rep out on it. And I can't tell you how many of those people, those artists have just come to love them. And, they leave us to become tour managers because they really rock it and create those relationships with the artist. And those artists will be like, we want you on our tour. So, that's the big one.
I've had really great runners. A runner doesn't sound like a hard job. You literally just go run errands. But when you're really great at it, all the laundromats that will do your laundry and fold it in 3 hours, and send it back to the venue. Or the best spots that will take an order for 20 people and make sure it's all correct and put everyone's names on it, stuff like that. So when somebody's really good, I remember them, and people have emailed me over the years and said, hey, I'm trying to get out of my city and I want a tour, so keep me in mind. I've hired them for assistant positions or other festival gigs or, anything I can.
So what is the biggest challenge that you faced as a woman in the industry? Doing what you
I feel like I have not really run into huge problems, to be quite honest. I work with a lot of women. I don't know if it's because, desk job kind of deal, but, I work with a lot of women. And of course, when I was working in customer service, I did run into issues where, or even in marketing, honestly, but, you can confront an issue head on and you just get a wall. But then unfortunately, a male coworker will approach the same exact thing. Oh, sure. That's no problem. There's no pushback or anything, but I feel like that's going to happen anywhere. The industry has really strong characters. That's just how it is. Women, men, doesn't matter. I've met some women that are just very strong. So, it kind of just, I feel like more for me, something that's held me back might just be my inexperience. So they look at me and they're like, what do you know? So I think it's more of that. And does it help that I'm a woman with, less than 10 years experience? Probably not. But, to me, it's just really learning your craft and then respectively barking as loud as everybody else and knowing what you're talking about. And that can be really intimidating. The first time I ever spoke up about what I thought marketing should be like for a show, I was just terrified. But yeah, I feel like being a woman not necessarily doesn't hold me back as much as just the lack of experience per se. But it's getting better. Like I said, there's a lot of women actually that I work with, managers, tour managers. We have a ton of at Premier, marketing directors. We have artist managers that are women. So yeah, I mean, of course, you'll run into situations, but overall, it's not been a major
Yeah.
holdback.
I think I can agree with that for the most part. I mean, strangely, I kind of feel like you find it in different genres on tour. I feel like I'm mostly always in the indie world, so I have a lot of like-minded men that I would say are feminists, as well. It's actually when I worked with Alabama Shakes, our production manager was a man, and typically I've always had a phone call or email exchanges with the promoter, so they know I'm a woman. But if it's something like a festival or something where there's a lot of different moving parts and somebody comes up to him and starts talking about things like security or something because they assume he's a tour manager, and he would always get this pleasure to say, oh, actually, this woman, Emily, she's our tour manager, so he would praise it and he would like encourage it. So that was always nice, kind of like, can you believe it's a woman? But I mean, in a positive way, But yeah, I know, I do think there still is, I think some ageism is out there for sure, where people in the past are like, wait, you're like over all of this, you're so young. But also as a woman, in the touring industry, there's kind of a new school of thought that's happening, and that butts heads with the old school of thought. And that's just a woman in general in your life, Some bus drivers have issues with me being their boss because they're not used to taking any kind of, criticism or just instruction from a woman. Some people that have been on a union in New York for 40 years, pretty old school dudes that are doing stagehand work or whatever, you definitely get it. Just sort of the nonchalant, like, oh, okay, whenever you're explaining something and you're sort of brushed off, for sure. Yeah. But I think it's kind of a new day. And again, it's sort of a genre thing from my experience. I know some other genres are not so woman friendly. So,
I feel like
I'm lucky.
in the Christian industry, they may like be overly nice. So, I mean, I do work, we're in a Christian industry, and you don't get cussed out a whole lot. Because, I mean,
that's nice.
Yeah. They'll be severely underhanded, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions? A couple of questions. Okay. Kira? I know Kira's really interested in being a tour manager, concert promotion. Sweet.
Before you got started, Emily, right?
Yes.
Before you got started and really became a frequent tour manager, did you have any like home jobs or things that you did between tours, or have that now?
Yeah. When I was with Dylan LeBlanc, the guy that's from here, my first touring gig, basically I started working for a management company in Nashville, and it was his management company. Let me say that again. He joined this management company. That's how I got to even work with him. I was working for the management company, and I was still doing festivals freelance on my own as well. So basically this manager would give me X amount of dollars a week, whether I was home or if I was at a festival, as long as I was staying on top of phone calls and emails and all that stuff, just like being involved. Also, when I would go home from tour or a festival, I would be a runner at the venues in town or sell merch for the venues as well. And those were mostly what I did. Like I said, even now, or as of last year, I stopped doing festivals, but maybe not forever. I just did, for a while, but I would still be able to maybe pick up something here and there in between tours to just sort of round out my whole year. So yeah, just kind of whatever came my way, if I could do it, I would. On the same note though, that's kind of why I stopped doing festivals, because my 2017 was probably the worst year of my career because I took too much on. I took on 3 bands that were new, which in my head I didn't realize. I mean, the thing that I think makes a tour manager great is like the finesse. They know the artist wants, they know the artist dislikes, and you kind of have them dialed in as a person. So that can help their day go better, So like taking on new artists, you have to learn the way the artist is, but the way that the managers manage and the way the business office works and all of that stuff. And then I also took on 3 major festivals as well. So saying yes to everything is good until you realize, okay, I can start saying no to some things and get more substantial gigs that pay better, that offer more support to me, or, that sort of thing.
So how far in advance, like I know we had a former student that was here a couple of weeks ago that works in theater, and he travels with different productions, and he has the whole 2019 already booked. So he knows in 2019 where he's working, when he's working. How far in advance do you book out, or do you have people that call and say, oh my gosh, we're going out in 2 weeks, can you come?
Yeah.
Or
Now I work with one artist, Boney Bear, and I work with him exclusively. And same thing I've said before, there is an industry standard, but everything's flexible. So basically, I contracted with him to say, you're my number one artist, but if something else comes along, I can ask them, hey, I'd love to do this little gig one-off thing. Is anything going to come up on the schedule? And if they're like, no, it's free, you can go ahead and do it. So, there's that option. But then back when I wasn't contracted with a specific artist, it's hard actually, because sometimes maybe the artist hasn't booked out like the whole year. Maybe they're just up to July. They know what they're going to do from now until July, and then all the fall and winter tours are still pending for them, and they're still figuring it out. So you kind of play this game of, okay, well, should I wait and see if they're going to do fall tours, or should I try to, for me, it would be like take on another artist or another festival. So it's hard, I mean, it's awesome that he fully freelances and he can have a whole year set up in February. I mean, for me, I always had one artist that was sort of my artist. So I would always kind of heed to whatever they had first, and then I would sort of fill in from there. But it's not always, that clean cut.
so do most tour managers work that way, where they say, okay, I'm committed to this artist for the year, and I will call you if I have another call? Or do they just work and say, okay, this tour's ready or finished, and now I've got to go find something else?
Yeah. I think it varies so much. I mean, ideally, you'd love to just stay with one artist for as long as possible if you enjoy that artist and they enjoy you. But, some people are definitely dialed in, and that's it. They're just one artist, because it makes your life easier. You don't have to deal with so many different projects. You're just on that one project. You can devote your time and attention to that artist. But, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a game. You have to like that. It can feel like you're out of control because you don't know when you're going to get paid again, But if you know that going into it, it can help you prepare. I mean, the industry kind of shuts down-ish after Thanksgiving and doesn't really open back up until now-ish, in terms of work or getting new projects. So kind of let a figure that out and figure out how you're going to make it through the winter kind of thing. I mean, as you grow older and get more experience, you don't have to worry so much because you're getting better gigs and more money, obviously. But
Another question? Anybody? Okay.
Do you do stuff overseas or internationally? What's that like?
yeah, it's different than here. It can be similar depending on the country. it's more intimidating, I guess, in the beginning because you really don't know the culture and the, just in general, the day to day. But then also on top of that, all this stuff you need to be responsible for. But like, for example, only time I've ever toured South America is always through the festival circuit. And Lollapalooza puts on festivals all over South America every March. So it's nice when it's something like that where I'm basically doing the same thing over and over, and it's through the festival versus our own individual shows. But when it's our own shows, like Europe is pretty similar to the States and the UK. I mean, they have different bus rules, so you have to learn a different set of, transportation rules. But most of the time, you can get by. And then once you do it once, take all the notes of what you'd redo or do, how you'd fix it, and then you just keep going from there. So, yeah. A lot of times in other countries, too, they'll have a liaison, like South America or Asian countries or Russia or anywhere like that. They'll have someone that speaks the language and is your liaison, and they're with you the entire time. In the States, you have a liaison, too, but they're kind of more of just your point person for the day on site at a festival versus the people that are in different, not non-English speaking countries will come with you in your transportation. They'll make sure you get to your hotel. They'll kind of pick you up in the van and make sure you get to the stage and that sort of thing. And they'll help translate. So usually through a festival, it's easier because you have that person. When you don't have that person and you're doing your own shows, it can definitely be a lot more complicated. And just dealing with people's work ethic in different parts of the world, the French and, there's certain people that are just kind of like blasé about things. And you're like, I need this done and I need to know that it's handled, and you kind of get these vague answers, or like South America takes off like 2 months around Christmas. So you're trying to get visas for your March run and no one's answering. So it can be difficult, but you have to just kind of be flexible. I think that's the moral of the whole thing, is just be flexible. Yeah.
I was going to say, we've promoted several international. Hillsong United is the one that we work with the most. That's international. South America last year was very interesting. So, obviously with promoters, you pretty much always have to work with a co-promoter locally. So we were working with those promoters and their marketing team. I don't want to say marketing team, it was a team. And, or in South America Asia, for example, China, we found out last minute, you can't market on Facebook. It was bizarre. They do WhatsApp and some other things that we don't really work with. And, we had to work with those co-promoters there and say, hey, can you translate this so that we can put this on the ads so that people know what the heck we're talking about? And so, the turnaround on that particular one was really short. So we were kind of fried at the end of it. But, just learning different rules for even advertising. They're very specific. And you have to be careful, especially with the Christian artists and stuff. You'll get some pushback in some of these countries, but it always makes for a fun.
We'll take that one question and then I'll finish up.
Yes, this is a question regarding, I guess, marketing, promotion. What are the current platforms? It's always changing and trending, obviously, depending on the genres, but it's a cultural thing that you're always following and watching. And we've got analytics now that kind of gives us a lot of information. But what are the current trends right now that provide you some of your best tools right now?
Facebook's always a big one. So, on any social media like Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. So, really, and there's a big trend lately that we've kind of found. We kind of freaked out for a while because we didn't understand what was happening. Shows weren't selling. But like the last 2 weeks, wow, there's a spike in ticket sales. Like, what in the world's going on? So I feel like the industry is kind of going into you'll have your top fans that are going to buy within the first 2 weeks, no matter what, because they're signed up to the email lists. They follow them on Facebook. They are going to get the ads and they know about the show. And they're going to buy immediately. And then you have this, I call it a blackout period, where literally all of my promotions are I'm just making sure it's in front of them and they know about it, because those are the people within the last 2 to 3 weeks that they're going to buy. So that's been a fun little thing. You know, we'll freak out in the middle, like, are they going to buy? Well, I'm looking at the reach and the engagement and all these analytics. They know about the show. The radio audience knows about the show because I've gone in and pulled past customer lists. We own a good bit of the customer list, or like if we work with Ticketmaster, we have to ask them, but we have those lists and we're marketing to those people and lookalike audiences and a bunch of other nerdy marketing things. But we know that we're hitting that audience. So then 4 weeks or so before the show is where I will specifically go in and will try to make those people convert. So, and especially with the Christian niche, their buying habits are really weird. So, Hillsong United, for example, like I said, like those fans, they know about it. They're really up to date. So we put a lot of Spotify ads out for them. Instagram stories is a big one. You're not necessarily going to see a lot of conversion from those specific ads, but because they're probably the people where, I saw an ad for that, I'll go to Hillsong's page, like website, and buy from there. Whereas we do promote the Gaither Vocal Band. They're the older market, so a little bit more Facebook heavy there, and they probably, like, you'll see a higher conversion rate from there because those people are going to click on there and buy from there. So again, you just have to roll with it and kind of know each artist's fans and how they're going to buy. And the longer that I've worked with them, you just kind of learn and you know what works and what doesn't. And then midway through the tour, you might have to switch the whole thing, and dump one thing and place all that money into something else. So sometimes it's a guessing game. Sometimes.
Okay, if you were starting out today, knowing what you know now about your career, would you do anything different? What would you do different starting? Something you did that didn't work, or attitudes you had, or something you would do?
I would say, as far as my attitude, I was terrified, and now I don't know why. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And now looking back, that wasn't a bad thing. So if you don't know what you're going to do, you don't know where you're going to land, it's fine. You will find a place, and you might work in something for a little bit that you don't love, but you're going to get that experience and you'll see what you are interested in, and doors will open through those people that you're meeting. And yeah, just meet a lot of people. I was scared to reach out to people, which, I'm so very happy that I ended up where I am, and I wouldn't take that back for anything. But I probably could have made a few more contacts and just took that step forward and been a little bit more vocal. So I would encourage you to do that. And just really, just make a lot of contacts, and don't be afraid to ask them politely, for help.
I think I wish that I would have known that what I was doing was I kind of had to create my own world or something. I didn't know. I thought someone was going to tell me. I thought the managers would lead me, and they did, to a degree. But I think I didn't understand that I had a say also, and that I could give my advice or experience or whatever, my suggestions to the managers, and then, we could figure out things together. Or when it was a manager that maybe didn't really know what they were doing, or they were also new, that I could have created processes and systems and, just organize things the way that I liked them the way that I thought it made a difference to that tour. I guess just having a little more empowerment, I thought I would just look to somebody else to sort of lead me. And I now realize that a lot of times again, there's a lot of industry standards, but you kind of have to go above and beyond and sort of organize things the way that your brain works, not the spreadsheet that the business office sent. I mean, and that's fine if you have to fill that out, but maybe you can also have your own so that you can see it and, sort of understand it in your own terms.
Well, I think our time is up. Y'all, thank them again for coming. And
Thank you.
Emily Bragg and Jeri Willoughby. Emily drove from Nashville and Jeri's from Coleman in this pouring down rain. So I appreciate you guys coming. The second panel will start in about 15 minutes. Please stay. It's artist management and booking, and Blake McDaniel and Tricia McClanahan will be here. And then immediately following that panel, we'll have a meet and greet time for you guys I think you guys may stay and be able to network, which is very important. So we'll take about a 15-minute break and then we'll be back. Thanks.